onset, that we would make it our business today to change that dynamic. That we would not just come to commemorate, to celebrate, to observe, and then we go and sit down as if nothing needs to be done.
Yeah.
There is so much yet to be done, not only in this greater Dayton Metroplex, but also in the surrounding communities that we not only live in, but we work in, and we interact and interface with people on a regular basis. I would suggest, in my 51 years of living, that there are people in this room who, if it wasn't for these kinds of gatherings, would never interact with people of color in their life. I want to say, don't look at me like that with that tone of voice. Because we have to intentionally interface with one another, and we have to intentionally and deliberately choose to work with each other, and we have to intentionally and deliberately partner with individuals who are diverse and different from us in order that we may be a part of the fabric of humanity legitimately. So many times we will go back to our communities, back to our places of interfacing, and never stretch or extend ourselves beyond the 2-mile radius of our community. And we'll think that we are doing the right thing. As recently as Tuesday, I was introduced to a book by a colleague of mine, Never Leave Us Alone. It is a recent chronicling by a historian and writer named Lewis Baldwin, who tells in candid terms, in lucid terminology, the prayer life, public and private, of Dr. Martin Luther King. He talks about how King would take one day a week and would go into seclusion and meditation from all of the responsibilities of the civil rights struggle movement, Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the like, and would spend hours in prayer with God. He would pray about a plethora of things and concerns, but more importantly, he would pray intentionally about the protection of the Jehovistic hand of God over his family. As he was placed in the eye of the storm, and as he was positioned by history and by God's own providence into the very fray of the struggle, he knew that his life was on the line every day, and in most places there were those who were scheming and plotting and methodologically trying to bring together the kinds of things that would end his life and ultimately end the movement. And King would go into seclusion and would pray to God about the protection of his family, not the success of the movement, but the protection of his family. And Baldwin says that when he would pray privately about the protection of his family, it would lead him to be able to stand publicly and recite many of those prayers publicly and apply it to those who were sacrificing for the movement itself. You know, one of King's favorite prophets was the prophet Amos. And I want to use this as my launching pad, and I'll be out of your way in about 5 more minutes. Notice what it says in Amos 5:24. It says, "Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream." Many times when we see this, we see it in light of the movement, but I need to give you some historical and ancient background and context for why this passage is so important in our contemporary society. Because just like many of us in different faiths today, we segregate ourselves in our faith community and don't realize there's a larger community of humanity that we must serve, and we must utilize our faith as the platform and the foundation to serve in the righteousness, holiness, and love of God himself. He says here in the sense of this community of those who were people of faith during the prophet Amos' time, that I've seen your feasts, I've seen your celebrations, your observances, I have received your offerings and all of the trappings of your faith liturgy, but I loathed your action beyond the cloistered walls of your faith community. Yeah. That's why Amos says, beyond your feasts, beyond your liturgies, beyond your prayers, beyond your efforts inside the cloistered environment of faith, I need someone who will allow their faith to spill over into life where the rubber meets the road. I need someone whose faith is willing to move beyond the four walls of our environment, where our praises go up and we declare that the blessings of God come down, and where our faith in prayer and our lengthy and long messages and homilies and sermons and speeches and messages fall on the ears of those who are sleeping through our very presentations, and then we go home, collect our salaries, and we are never of any effect anymore. God wants justice to roll down like water, and he wants righteousness to flow like a mighty stream. Amos tells us here in this passage something about who we ought to be, because this is what God wants. We ought to be, number one, advocates of the poor. Yes, Jesus said that one of his missions was that the Spirit of God had come upon him and had anointed him to be able to preach, to proclaim the good news to the poor. Yeah. Yes. To set at liberty the captives, to heal the brokenhearted, and to mend those who were bruised. Part of Jesus' mission was not just messianic, but also to show forth in that messianic mission all of the outlining things that you and I miss on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. With our big Bibles, our Qurans, our books under our arms, headed to our mosques, to our temples, to our synagogues, to our churches, and we ride right past the poor, the indigent, the needy, the suffering. And this is what King was spending his last days pulling together. He was putting together, according to historians, what was called a poor people's campaign. Yes, yes. And he spent his last birthday pulling together all of the intricate parts of this poor people's campaign, which number one dealt with access to education. He has seen the inadequacies and the injustices of Jim Crow. And let me say right here that in being an advocate of the poor, sometimes we have to see what is right even when it's not legal.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Because it was legal, separate but equal, which we found out was really separate but unequal, was legal, but it wasn't morally right. It wasn't ethically right. It was legal. It was the law of the land, but it was not righteous. It was not just. It was not equitable. And so we must be advocates of the poor, to have access to education, to have access to those areas outside of their communities, outside of their areas of hobnobbing, outside of their areas of interfacing, so that they can have access to higher education, access to a learning environment that's conducive for their success and not their failure. We've got to partner with these young people and let them know that they are the ones who will lead and to model and to show this beloved community that Dr. King talked about. We may not see it, but we have to invest in our young people and giving them the access to education so that they can lead us into the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and however long Jesus will tarry and not return, to that we may have that beloved community that we pray about, that we intercede about, that we give in supplication about. We must be advocates of that. Yeah. Advocates of economic growth. And I believe more than anything else, this is why King became such a threat, because now he's playing with people's money. Yeah. They was all right. We don't mind you having the ability to choose whatever seat you want on a bus and sit where you want in a cafeteria or on a lunch line, or sit where you want in a theater. But now you start messing with our economic base. And you start talking about reparations and talking about how the promise was that once we were free, we would be given a 40 acres and a mule. I haven't gotten it yet. I want it. You promised me, I don't care if the mule is blind, crippled, and can't tie one row. I want the promise of my mule. I want my 40 acres because I have something to give to my children if I had a mule and a 40 acres. So, not just education, but economics. And many of us of color have been locked out of this colonialism and this society economically. We've been abandoned by urban flight. Some of you don't want to live next to us.
All right.
And you proved it by leaving. And then you leave us to fix the problem you created. The inner cities weren't brownfields. They became brownfields because we who had an invested interest abandoned them. And then property values went down. And what you bought your home for, you can't even get that out of it now if you try to get rid of it.
Yeah.
We've got to buy in to be advocates of access to education and economics. I've gone too long. But secondly, we must be ambassadors of justice. What's right? What's right morally? What's right ethically? We've got to be ambassadors of justice. Let justice roll down. Let justice flow. Hebrew words suggest let justice seek opportunity, seek occasion to roll down like water. I like that word water, mayim in the Hebrew. It deals with the idea of a flowing stream, but it has two connotations that maybe we need to observe. One is urine. Perhaps only when we smell enough urine do we really know how unjust this society is and how unjust it has become and how important it is for us to be the conduits through which justice is meted out. Now, I don't care about your political persuasion. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a progressive or a liberal, or if you're a Republicrat. How can we agree with a shutdown that appears to be personal and petty? How can we agree with individuals in our society who are responsible for areas of safety and areas of allowing our nation to move at a level that is successful, and now they are working and not getting paid, and many of them missing mortgage payments, missing opportunities to care for their children, missing what we would call the American dream? It has become a nightmare. But this is what the Lord says: while you've been giving your feast and your offerings and your observances and you clapping your hands and praising, he says, what have you done in letting justice roll down like a stream? Maybe the urine of justice will cause you to change. And here's the other one. It's the implication of semen, seed. I like this particular implication, because what it suggests to us is if we scatter enough seed of justice, and if it's watered properly, and if it's fertilized correctly, and it's put in the right environment, the harvest of justice, the results of justice will be that of righteousness, flowing perpetually, perennially, like a mighty stream. We must be ambassadors.